Hello and welcome. Please take a seat, get cozy and enjoy a cup of terror with me, Stephanie Valentine. Hello my spooky little pumpkins. How are you? I hope you're doing well. So we're still in our lovely little pub. We still have the fire going. I've got my pumpkin, my own spooky little pumpkin. I've got my tea and I have a historical true crime story today. So we are going back to the 1700s to talk about an Italian witch and poisoner in Sicily. A little disclaimer as usual, I will be talking about murder, death, and there is also an instance of animal cruelty as well. I will also be discussing torture towards the end of the video. Giovanna Bonanno was an alleged witch and poisoner known as, and I apologise for the terrible pronunciations throughout this video, La Vecchia del Aceto, the old lady of the vinegar, because of the deadly potions she sold. Not much is known about Giovanna's early life. She was born roughly around the year 1713. Some sources say that she was born Anna Panto, and in 1744 she married a Vincenzo Bonanno. The name Giovanna might have been the result of an error or falsification. She had a hard life, scraping a living from begging on the streets of Palermo, Sicily. She also made a bit of money from folk magic. She sold potions and concoctions to make a little bit of extra cash. Those potions were innocent enough, but in 1786, while strolling through the streets, she witnessed a scene that would change her life forever. She would soon end up delving into a rather more dangerous and lethal venture. In front of an aromaterias's shop, she witnessed a mother holding her young daughter in her arms. In ancient times, an aromaterias was a dealer in spices and also sometimes medicines. The little girl was suffering badly. The mother explained that the girl had accidentally drunk some of the aceto per pidocchi, literally vinegar for lice, which was supposed to be used externally. The vinegar, which had been created by the aromaterias, was a mixture of vinegar and arsenic. The man forced the girl to drink a lot of olive oil, and this made her vomit and expel the poison from her body. Thankfully, the girl seems to have survived this incident. So Giovanna was very interested in this new discovery. She was a hustler, shall we say, always on the lookout for new ways to make money. She bought a bottle of the vinegar and put her new plan to the test. She found a stray dog, of which there were many, and she tied it to a stake. She gave the dog a piece of bread soaked in the lice vinegar. The following morning, she found the dog dead. She examined the fur and examined the inner lining of the lips and found that they were a natural colour. So she was pleased with this, because if the fur had pulled away easily and if the lips were black, that would have been obvious signs of poisoning. But the dog looked like it had died of natural causes. She had found the seemingly perfect way of murdering someone without detection. She was thinking that this could be a real good money maker for her. She was ready to test the vinegar on humans. She started spreading the news that she had a special liquor. By paying a modest sum of money, unhappy wives could acquire this potion to get rid of their unwanted husbands and finally be together with their lovers. She soon earned the reputation of being a witch. Her first customer was Angela Lafata, who wanted to get rid of her husband Giuseppe and marry her lover, also called Giuseppe. To be honest, Angela was more of an experiment for Giovanna to be able to work out the perfect and correct dosage. So Giovanna gives Angela a quantity of poison equal to the one that had killed the dog, but it didn't really do much. It just gave her husband a horrible stomachache. The next day, Angela received another dose of poison, but still it didn't kill her husband. Poor Giuseppe was given different doses over the next few days, and he suffered greatly until he died in a lot of pain. Nobody discovered that Giuseppe had been poisoned, but she still needed to work out the perfect dosage. Her second customer was Margherita Serio, who wanted the poison on behalf of a friend of hers, Emanuela Molinari. Emanuela wanted to kill off her husband, a baker called Ferdinando Lopiccolo. This time it took just 2 doses of poison before the man died. Giovanna's business soon took off. Her vinegar became very in demand and sought after. Giovanna referred to it as arcane vinegar liquor, and an order would be placed for vinegar. The vinegar was the ideal concoction for murderous folks. The victim couldn't detect it, and doctors couldn't diagnose it. At the time, it was completely untraceable. She started out by selling her poison to women who wanted to murder their husbands. Her typical client tended to be a woman, a wife with a lover who wanted to get rid of their husbands in order to then be with their lover. The doctors would be unable to work out the cause of death, but word of this vinegar soon spread, and all manner of devious folk who were after a sneaky way of killing someone soon made their way to Giovanna. She ended up hiring a woman, Rosa Bilotta, to help her find new clients in exchange for a percentage of the sales. There were soon many suspicious cases of men keeling over all over town, and the authorities were helpless. They couldn't do much about this string of strange, mysterious deaths, all of which were characterized by stomach disorders. By the way, the aromatarium who Giovanna bought her vinegar from, he never stopped to inquire about the large amounts of vinegar that she was constantly purchasing from him. I mean, I guess, you don't want to be nosy, but at the same time, it was kind of suspicious. Giovanna's business soon was so popular, so busy, that she struggled to keep on top of everything. So she ended up having to delegate and found herself a bunch of accomplices, essentially, to work with. One of these people was Maria Pitara. Maria worked hard for Giovanna, and she had found clients who had purchased the vinegar and went on to poison their husbands, and she would also often do the deliveries of the poison. Unfortunately for Giovanna, though, one of these deliveries would end up being her downfall. In August 1788, Francesco Costanzo returned home one evening, and he found his wife Rosa in an intimate chat with his gardener, Emanuele Caschino. The gardener assaulted Francesco, and he fled and sought refuge at his mother's house, also called Giovanna Lombardo. He went there for the night. The couple eventually reconciled, and they moved into Francesco's mother's house while she moved out to give the couple some space. At the end of September, Giovanna paid her son a visit, hoping to find that her son and his wife had made up, but instead she found her son seriously ill. He kept vomiting and suffered from severe stomachache. She had him moved and called for her doctor. Sadly, despite the efforts of his mother and the doctor, Francesco died on the 27th of September in great pain. Soon after her husband's death, Rosa remarried. She never seemed particularly concerned for her husband when he had fallen ill before his death. Giovanna Lombardo soon became very suspicious and thought that perhaps his death could have been murder. She started making inquiries, believing that Rosa had bewitched her son. At the same time, Giovanna Bonanno had just discovered who her last victim was. When she had handed the poison over to Maria Pitara to deliver, she hadn't asked who the intended victim was. Giovanna Bonanno actually knew Giovanna Lombardo, and ever the hustler, she thought she might be able to sell some information to the grieving mother and make some cash. She really didn't have much of a conscience. But Giovanna Bonanno didn't realise that Giovanna Lombardo had worked out that her former daughter-in-law had bought the vinegar and used it on her son, and she had also worked out who she'd bought it from. She wanted revenge. She set a trap for the old lady. She pretended that she wanted to buy a bottle of the poisonous concoction and arranged a meeting. The day of the meeting came, and when Giovanna Bonanno arrived, she saw that her client was not alone. She was caught in the act with a poisonous liquid in her hand, and she was finally arrested. Along with Giovanna, others were also arrested and charged, including the aromatarium, the accomplices, and her clients. She was taken to Steri prison, which had been used to host witches, magicians, and heretics. She was shaved and had to wear a white robe and subjected to the torture of the corda. Also known as the strappado or reverse hanging, the accused hands are tied behind their back and then they're lifted up by a rope attached to the wrists, typically resulting in dislocated shoulders and excruciating pain. Weights were sometimes added to the body to increase the pain. The torture is so damaging that it generally can't last for more than an hour without rest, because it would very likely result in death. And even if you survived the torture, you would end up with severe, lifelong, permanent damage and injury. It's horrible. All torture is. This form of torture was used during the Salem witch trials, and this form of torture is still used in some places, from what I can gather. I mean, humans really are not nice to each other sometimes. On October 1788, Giovanna's trial began. She was accused of witchcraft and the aromatarium, and her clients were called to testify. Some of her clients accused her of bewitching them into making the purchases. When asked if she sold the poison for money or just because she was evil, essentially, she answered that she really had good intentions behind her actions. She claimed that she did want to make families happy again. She reasoned that if a marriage was unhappy, it was highly likely that the wife would have an affair. The husband, upon discovering the affair, would probably kill his wife and her lover, but then he would be arrested and executed. So that would be 3 lives lost. But if the husband was removed, shall we say, the other 2 lives would be saved, the woman wouldn't sin anymore, and this new happy family would emerge. Not really the best logic there. No one believed Giovanna, surprisingly. No one believed her good intentions, and she was found guilty of being a witch and a poisoner and sentenced to hang. This was the 27th of July 1789, by the way. I don't know if the trial actually took a full 9 months or if there was some sort of a break or gap at some point. Giovanna Bonanno, who was almost 80 years old at the time, was executed on the 30th of July 1789 in front of a large crowd. Giovanna's accomplice, Maria Patara, was also put on trial and found guilty. She was dragged through the streets of Palermo with a rope around her neck, and when she arrived at the gallows, she had to kiss the executioner's feet before being hanged. Some might argue that technically it was the clients who were the murderers, not Giovanna. Absolutely, they're guilty as well. They knew full well what they were getting into when they purchased the vinegar and then going on to give the liquid to their husbands or whoever it was they wanted to kill. But Giovanna's not innocent. It's not like she was just selling an everyday item that someone would end up misusing for murderous purposes. She was selling the vinegar specifically to kill people off. She knew that anyone being given this poison would end up suffering and eventually dying. So they're all at fault. They are all guilty of causing death, causing murder. So that's the story of La Vecchia dell'Aceto. I must apologise for all the terrible mispronunciations of the Italian words and names. There was a lot in this video, and I'm sorry if it was painful to listen to me trying to pronounce them properly. Anyway, thank you for hanging out with me today and spending time watching this. I really appreciate it. Huge thank you again to Matt for allowing us to film in here. I mean, how lovely is this? Oh, the fire's gone out, but it's still really warm and cozy, and it's nearly Halloween as well, and I'm just, yes, it's my favourite time of year. So yes, if you liked this video, please give it a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I hope to see you again soon for another cup of terror.